Hello lovelies, welcome back to my channel. My name is Bryony and I do cruelty-free and vegan makeup reviews and tutorials on this channel and deep dives into the environmental and ethical issues with the beauty industry. Ooh. So, a lot gets covered here, but of course on the lead up to Christmas I wanted to have a bit of a positive spin on the beauty industry, and instead of all of like the more serious topics that we've been covering over the past 10 days, because we've honestly, like, a lot of research went into those last ones and I kind of feel like they're relevant for like whenever. Check out the playlist up here, it will also be linked at the end of this video. Also don't forget to subscribe because I know that a number of people that watch my videos aren't actually subscribed and it would help me out so much. I really want to hit 1,000 so then I can actually like use the community tab so I can like interact with you more, because normally the best way to communicate with me is on Instagram right here. And of course if you do decide to recreate this more sultry like date night look, please do tag me on there as well because I'd love to see it. This is like Christmas Jessica Rabbit in a way. I really wanted to make this video a really fun one where we're actually looking back on like the ride or dies from the past, like the products that everyone was like hyping up to a ridiculous degree. That is what we're focusing on, and it's the influence that YouTube has had on the beauty industry and those individual products from those individual brands over the years. We're even going to harken back to 2011. That's where we're starting, so let's just jump straight into it now. As per usual, everything I'm using is cruelty-free, vegan and not owned by parent companies that test on animals. All of the products I use are listed just down below in the description. I wanted to take us back at the start to have a look at 2011 because I sort of feel like in terms of beauty YouTube, I think that people like X-Sparkage were around then, and Marlena was of course from Makeup Geek. There was one foundation that we all discovered and fawned over. I didn't actually get influenced by YouTube at this point in time. I didn't know about this from YouTube. I knew about it from high school because I came across it when I went to a department store, and that is Revlon Colorstay foundation. This was my biggest splurge because in New Zealand this cost $45 at the time, and it took up basically an entire week's paycheck from my part-time job. You know that I struggle when it comes to finding a full coverage foundation, and I did not mind the fact that this thing smelled like chemicals. And like even in 2011 everyone was using it. I feel like even up to like 2014, 2015 people were still using it. If you are still using this foundation, please let me know, because I know that everybody was like raving about this for the longest time, and they're like, it's a drugstore foundation. So I actually had a quick Google. In America it's $15, and I'm like, oh, $45 here in New Zealand dollars. It's actually gone up as well in New Zealand. I believe that it's close to $55 now. I know it's got a beautiful finish on it, but it definitely smells like you're putting a chemical factory on your face. Now, we can't bring up 2011 without bringing up MAC. Honestly, was there a YouTuber that didn't use MAC back then? So like MAC's Painterly Pot, which is still used today. Like I know that people like Jamie French still use it, and like a number of other people must still use it. It's not quite the same effect as the Velvet Teddy though. I'm thinking that when I mention that, a number of you will be like, I need to get more of that in my life, because do you remember how sought after that particular formula was? As well as Ruby Woo, like everyone went wild for that red. Now MAC was obviously so heavily used back then, and it's a bit weird that they gave up on like their whole cruelty free status because they obviously wanted to sell in China. And Pamela Anderson, for anyone that's not on obviously first term basis as we are, she quit them because of that connotation. So hey, you know what, like people have always like said a lot of bad stuff about her, but mate, she stuck to her guns, so super impressive. I mean, like MAC is still around now, but are they really like the same sort of powerhouse that they used to be? Because I definitely do not think so. Since I'm doing such a smoky eye look, this will probably be another trigger for you guys, which is the Urban Decay Naked Palette. Probably the most decluttered palette of like 2017. I don't know why we had it in our mind that it was like the most fashionable thing to have a shimmery smoky eye, and it's like when you look at the colors now, we're like, it was those? those over there that we really went wild over. And I wanted this palette so bad, and I had to spend the longest time trying to find it because of course like shipping to New Zealand, especially back then, my god, it was so hard to find anywhere that would ship here. I think it cost me like $30 or somewhere close to that to be able to ship it here. And I used it a whole bunch. I loved it because you were told it was the best thing, but I was also kind of like disappointed at the same time, but still got compliments on it because people would recognize it because we didn't have as much range then. 2020, we have so much range that we don't even know what to do with our makeup palettes right now, right? But it definitely wasn't always the case. Slush 2. Do you remember when they came up with all of their new iterations of it? Like it was groundbreaking. Do you remember that? This is the one that I have a story about. The Benefit Hula bronzer. Everybody, and I mean everybody owned this, like, because of course like I was kind of waking up to the whole cruelty free thing, and Benefit I thought were cruelty free. Everybody used this. I still remember seeing it in like every little tutorial that I would watch, everything. And so I was like, I need to get hold of this. And like I said, getting makeup in New Zealand, even to this day, can still be a heckin' challenge. But back then it was like going on some sort of dangerous scavenger hunt. Like you just had no idea if what you were getting was legit. You hoped it was, and that's what happened to me. I was actually sold fake Benefit Hula bronzer, but I was so excited to get it. But it cost so much money to be able to buy it, and I was so proudly using it, carving my face out. I also got the Dandelion blush, and I was just like, oh, I'm just like every other person. I can relate to the rest of the world now, even though I'm in New Zealand and I don't have access to this stuff in the same way. I was convinced. And then my skin started to leak. I was getting these, oh, I still remember it, my skin was so painful. Always buy from reputable sellers, please. Oh my god. My skin went like red, and then, sorry, trigger warning, skip ahead to this if you can't handle this, but my skin went red. It didn't just peel, it was like it was constantly wet because it was stripping away the layers of my skin, and there was always like pus coming out because of course you use your bronzer over here, because I still didn't know what I was doing. I still kind of don't, and it was just like these little like constant bubbles of pus as my skin was just being eaten by this product, literally getting eaten. And then I figured out, I was like, oh, it's got to be this. It took about 3 weeks for this to clean up. Buy from reputable sites. That was the bronzer that we all loved. Welcome back everyone that couldn't handle that. Now, who uses it? Do any of you still use it? Also, the Benefit Hula bronzer that was created in 2001, like, can you believe that? 2001. Wow. Now when something's released back then, we're like, that's so old, that's not even relevant now, because we're so used to having like these constant things come out all the time. I've made a video about it up here if you want like my real thoughts on all of this stuff. The Nars Orgasm blush. Could there be anything more overhyped than this blush? Of course I never bought it because, one, too expensive for my cheap taste when I was not earning much money, and two, they weren't really known for like being totally cruelty free, and also really hard to find here in New Zealand. Again, so limiting here. But yeah, it was just the most iconic blush, and everyone was like, oh, it's so edgy being called Orgasm. And us looking back on this in 2020, we're like, we've seen all the more in terms of like edgelords. Skip ahead to 2013. Too Faced mascara. Oh, the Better Than Sex mascara. Do we all remember that? I still remember really wanting this. Again, too hard to find in New Zealand. Really freaking challenging. But then, like, when I've actually watched reviews of people using it, they're like, oh, it's so, like, crumbly and flaky. And of course now we know what them as a company think about the rest of the world. So the fact that they just think it's just rich lives that matter. I don't know many people that are still using Too Faced. Do you still use Too Faced? Honestly, I'd be quite surprised if people still are using Too Faced, or at least actively purchasing their products instead of like just trying to use the products up. Okay, so this is when we're all getting right into that whole like Contouring, brightening. Oh, Kim Kardashian. We're getting into this sort of vibe now. The Saint Laurent Touche d'éclat. The like little pen clicky highlighter thing. Oh my god, did everyone lose their minds over this? So I still remember when people were like discovering it. 1992 it was released, and then of course like cult status, and then I think it was professional makeup artists that had like started to infiltrate like the YouTube space a bit, and so people were like, oh, this is what professional makeup artists use. Do you use that? Did anyone really buy that and find it to be good? Because I'd be interested to know, because honestly, like for me, I'm just here like, alright, okay, it's gonna be a hard no from me. I think that costs like some, well, I mean, it's Yves Saint Laurent. It's gonna be stupid expensive. So I really do not know what people were doing with their money back then. But again, we've got like eyeshadow palettes that are like 150 bucks now. So in terms of expenditure on makeup, it's only been going up. That could be one of the main reasons why so many influencers have really wanted to jump on that bandwagon, huh? I need to talk about Estee Lauder Double Wear makeup. I've only got one video so far on Estee Lauder and the reason why I really do not like them as a company, and it's just relating to one person. I've got a lot more to say, which is what is going to be coming up in 2021. I'll be doing more deep dives into companies. This is the foundation that people still use now. And when was the foundation? So the foundation was launched in 1997 and people still use it now. They love it. I know that there are still makeup artists that love it, like, because it provides like that really full coverage and it lasts all day. It's basically like this sort of makeup that people want for selfies, but it doesn't look too cakey, and I just know that everyone just went wild for it, and I'm like, okay, if you love that one, have you tried this one from e.l.f? It's like 10 bucks, at least in my money. 10 bucks to me, I'm like, I do really recommend the e.l.f. foundation, like, so much. Like, why are you spending $70 on like this glass bottle to feel classy? Like, it doesn't really do all that much in comparison to what you can get from the drugstore. Everyone here will probably also remember the Laura Mercier setting powder. People still use this one too. I'm pretty sure there's other lovely finely milled powders out there, like obviously Laura Mercier isn't exactly what I'd call cruelty free. I use the Cover FX one. I still love that one. That's been in my favourites for I don't know how long now, but like their perfecting setting powder, chef's kiss. Great. But wasn't it really like in 2013, if you baked under your eyes with anything other than this or the Ben Nye banana powder, oh my god, do you remember when everyone put like bright yellow under their eyes and we all thought it looked really good? Wow, such a different world today. But I'll probably look back on the makeup looks I do now and I'll be like, ooh, in like 5 years, so I can't really talk. I want a smudgy, sultry look. So that's exactly what we're doing right now. Let's talk about the Beauty Blender. I still use the Beauty Blender to this day. This is just the blender itself. This is not the foundation that they did. Because I've done a review on the foundation. And the sponge that kicked the brush out. Because that's really what happened. From 2013 was that, like, how many people still like apply their makeup with brushes? Like, I remember Sigma used to really rule the roost, really just taken over. I've noticed a bit more in 2020 that less and less people are using the sponges, specifically Beauty Blender ones, like they're pushing more Real Techniques ones or like other brands, because it's not just Beauty Blender that has a monopoly, but back then it really was just all about Beauty Blender. That iconic pink sponge. But if you want, I think that everyone knows that their Pro is a much better texture. But I do actually want to find like a new brand to support as well, because I kind of want to try and find like more and more indie brands. So if you've got a good dupe or like just a really good makeup sponge that you'd recommend, then do let me know. This is a product that I swore by. I was so sad when I couldn't buy this anymore, because of course I'd be supporting someone that was strongly anti-vax, and you already know how I'm on about as soon as I mention that. Yeah, the Kat Von D tattoo liner. Best thing since sliced bread for someone that has like uneven eyes like I do when it comes to doing wings. Loved it. I loved the formula. I loved the application because it actually has a brush tip. Everyone was using this. I know that the Lock-It foundation got really high reviews as well, but I kind of feel like in terms of like the one that stuck around the longest, this one did. Going on about the anti-vax stuff, and then like more was found out about anti-Semitism and all sorts of ugly stuff. So both kind of scummy. Really, really, really glad that Kat Von D isn't like supported anymore, and like she's just out of that position now. So when you support KVD Vegan Beauty, then you're not supporting her, so you don't need to worry if that was like a concern of yours. We're thinking back to 2014. This is getting more and more relevant. We all used ABH brow pomade. Blocky brows were like really in, myself included, and I did that for way too long. Like, I still overdraw my brows now, but not like to the degree that I did then. It looked so bad. ABH anymore. I'm trying to like veer away from using them and obviously support local and more indie brands instead. If you have any recommendations, once again, please do comment them down below because I would love to hear your thoughts on this. Do you know what else happened in 2014? Colourpop arrived on the scene. It feels like Colourpop have been around for such a long time, but also not very long. And of course they launched with their Super Shock shadows that they came out with, and that's still like a best-selling formula for them. And now, can you believe that since then they're now launching like new products nearly every single week, and they've kind of become like the fast fashion of like the beauty industry? Isn't it just like weird to think about that? Was this part of their plan the whole time? Oh my god, Kylie Cosmetics. Did they launch in 2014 as well? They must have, because we all had like cat butt lips back then. But yeah, like she obviously came up with like those lip products first. It's basically the same formula as Colourpop because it's made in the same factory. And we all used to dry our lips out to no end and then have to exfoliate the hell out of them because they were so dry, and then moisturize them so heavily at nighttime because we'd dried them out too much. 2016. Think back to the Tart Shape Tape concealer, just the concealer, not that foundation, but the concealer. There are so many people that still do use that actually. I don't really know if Tarte ever got properly cancelled because of their shade range or not, but I kind of feel like that did happen, but then maybe they expanded it. Now we go back to 2016 for the Anastasia Beverly Hills Modern Renaissance palette. I mean, would it be anything else that would be as iconic as that? Or their like brow pomades? I didn't buy it again, it wasn't vegan, at least to my knowledge it's not vegan, so I never actually bought it, but I know everybody loved it because it didn't have like all those really beautiful like pinky tones in it then, and like there was some more like warm browns and stuff. I mean, like when it comes to ABH, do you remember like when their biggest drama was a Subculture palette? Do you remember that? Does anyone even remember the Subculture palette? I don't know what Norvina's been up to with that company, hey. It's been a very weird transition for them. I know that for me and like a number of other people, they're no longer actually supporting them, which is a shame because the products are good, but like all you need to do is like change a bit, maybe actually pay the creators that you are saying that you're going to pay. See what I mean about like subtle Jessica Simpson? Jessica Simpson, oh my god, wow. Oh, that is another different memory lane in it. But like definite like subtle Jessica Rabbit vibes. I just need really juicy red lips now. Do you remember when we all started to use like mane and tail shampoo and conditioner? Do you remember that becoming a thing? I remember everyone just like asking, it's like, I've heard about this amazing shampoo but it's used on horses. Everyone started using it. When did this happen? Because I tried to have a look back through the lore of this and I could not find exactly when it actually happened, but I know it did because I know that people started using like the shampoo and conditioner on their own hair that's made for horses. Why? Why did we think that this was a thing to do? Are there any other products that were like holy grail amazingness that people have just like kind of fallen by the wayside? I kind of left influencer things out, but like there is of course Jaclyn Hill like with the Morphe collab. Was it that first one that had like those two sort of turquoise shades and it's like that big like silver sort of palette? Not the Vault collection, but the one before that. I know that like that was like super famous and a lot of people loved it because that formula was actually good. But you know what, we hate Morphe here, so I didn't really want to include that anyway, but now I've just talked about it, so whatever. But do you remember any other ones that were like huge from YouTube? Like they just elevated like to a ridiculous degree. But yeah, I hope that you have enjoyed this little trip down memory lane with me. I definitely found it a lot of fun looking into some of these brands and I was like, we were so silly. But you know what, we're gonna look back on this in like 10 years and be like, a lot has changed since then. So I'm kind of looking forward to that. Maybe in the future I'll actually come back and review this video and then be like, oh sweetie, you don't even know, we're 3D printing everything now, so then there's no freight. If you didn't even need to go to a shop and you could just like 3D print a sample of makeup. Wow. That would would be so good. But very hard to get all those ingredients. Don't forget to check out the next video, which I believe is coming out tomorrow on Christmas Day. The best day of the year. So that is where we're actually going to be covering my top products for 2020 of everything that I've tried. I have been very discerning, so do please join me for that. You'll see a different version of this when it gets brought up to another level, because why not? We can have a bit of fun in 2022. Even though it's been very sad. Well, actually, do you know what? We can have more fun in 2022, hopefully. But in 2020, it's been a bit of a hard year, so I sort of wanted to, like, end it fully on, like, a bit more of a high note, so that's why I hope you've enjoyed this little giggle with me. And I'll see you lovelies again very, very soon for the Christmas one. Bye! Oh, did everyone do this back then? Ow!